Assalamualaikum and very good morning. I bring to you. Today our group, which is B5, is going to present about our video presentation based on our report, which the topic is sedimentation in water and water waste industry. So first of all, I would like to introduce my group members, which is Bashir, Muhammad Khairikwan, Muhammad Firdaus, and me, Muhammad Asim. So I will tell you about the introduction part, and others I will take by my friends. Okay, for the introduction, first of all, the definition of sedimentation. So what is sedimentation actually? Based on the Wikipedia, sedimentation is the tendency for particles in suspension to settle out of the fluid in which they are entrained and come to rest against a barrier. It is due to their motion through the fluid in response to the force acting on them. This force can be due to gravity, centrifugal acceleration, or electromagnetic. Next, I will tell you about the story of sedimentation. So basically, sedimentation started back in 1956. In essence, sedimentation was research with stream gagging and sediment sampling activities. In early 1958, the first part of present laboratory facility was built in order to make better understanding of sediment transport problem. Then, in 1987, the main wing of the laboratory was added, which included more spaces, more laboratory and office spaces. So during the 40 years time, many scientists and engineers have made routine visits to the laboratory and have joined other agencies and institutions in combined effort to make the sedimentation more better. So lastly, about industrial objective. First is remove some of the contaminants. Next, help to settling of coagulated and flocculated waters prior to filtration. Next is reduce the concentration of particles in suspension before application of coagulation. Next is to make settling of coagulated and flocculated waters prior in a water softening plant easier. Next is help to settling of treated waters in an iron and manganese remove plant. Next is act as pre-treatment for the other process to increase the effectiveness. Lastly, improve the visual qualities of the water and increase its acceptance by consumer. So I think that's all for my part. Thank you.
For my part, I'll talk about customer requirements in this industry. The idea of customer requirement is basically judged by supply and demand. So we'll see both aspects of supply and demand here. Starting with the supply, we see that in the recent 21st century, there has been growing awareness, population, and demand for water and wastewater treatment. And this has been made possible by the application of modern technologies. The demand includes usage in domestic use, industrial use, pharmaceutical, farming, environmental, and other uses. So you see the demand is growing with the growing technologies. But basically, for both the privatized and the public sectors of this industry, the demands or the requirements for this industry are the same. The water must be okay with the health and environmental aspects, and additionally must be atheistically acceptable, meaning that the taste, the odors, all these things should be acceptable to the end users. For instance, to see the growing demand, we see in China, this industry will be about $46.6 billion worth in 2015, which is this year. But generally, there are peak times in demand for this industry. For example, peak time during the year or peak time during a particular day. So next we move on. Now we talk about the supply part. So we see that government regulations and awareness help keep the demand in line with supply. Because if you have high demand and supply cannot provide, then this is a bad situation. So you need to keep both at hand.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum. I'm Muhammad Ikhwan, 17220. I will present about process description. Okay, the first part is about the block diagram for our wastewater treatment. So here we have mixing, sedimentation, the experiment that we have done in our lab, and we have filtration, and we have chlorination, and we supply it to the customer. Okay, next. Okay, why we need this water treatment? Okay, the first of all, we need to remove suspended solid, and then we also need to remove biodegradable organic, and lastly, we need to remove the bacteria that can give birth disease. Okay, next. Okay, in the water treatment industry, we have three parts. Okay, so I will explain to you how this part works. Okay, in primary parts, they remove gross, suspended, and floating solid from raw sewage. In these parts, then we add flocculant, and then the flocculant we coagulate the solid, and the solid will go to the bottom, and we call it sludge waste. So that's how the primary treatment works. And this primary treatment almost used for all wastewater treatment. Okay, and the second one is secondary treatment. In secondary treatment, we have to remove the dissolved organic matter. In this treatment, we will use sandbag filter, for example. They have layer of activated carbon, so they can remove organic matter. And then for tertiary part of tertiary treatment is additional treatment. We add chlorine in order to kill the bacteria, because we know, right, chlorine is highly toxic. So they can kill bacteria to prevent us from disease. Okay, next. Okay, so the next part is about PFD, or process flow diagram. So if you see here, we can see the major parts of the process. The thick line, the thick pipeline is shown for us for the major parts of the process. Okay, I will explain to you how this process works. Okay, from the raw water, we pump it into the mixing tank. Okay, we have mixing tank here. In this mixing tank, we will add flocculant. As for example, is aluminum sulfate. In order to solid, they will coagulate, and then the particle will, and then they will coagulate and exhibit the sedimentation process, or it stimulates the sedimentation process. And then after we mix the water and the flocculant, we will let the water go to clarifier tank. Okay, in this clarifier tank, the sedimentation occur at a certain time. That means the sedimentation occur, how they occur, the solid that coagulate, the sludge waste we remove to bottom, and we go to the remove to the bottom. Okay, why we have to? Because to increase the to increase the product efficiency if at a done time. For example, if we want to use this tank one, and we can let the clarifier tank to sedimentation to occur, and then the process will always continuous. Okay, after clarifier tank, we have sandbag filter. Okay, for sandbag filter, for your information, we have two types of sandbag filter. First is surface filter, and the other one is depth filter. What is surface filter? Surface filter is the particle we capture on the permeable surface. And for the depth filter, the solid or the particles we capture on the porous body. And then in this cell bed filter, they have many activated carbon, so that can make so many activated carbon, and so they will remove the dissolved organic material. And lastly, they will go to the spray tank. In this spray tank, they will spray chlorine, and then why we use chlorine? Because it's highly toxic, so it can remove the bacteria in order to remove the disease from the water. After we have spray tank, the water will go to the storage first before we supply to the customer. Why we need storage? This is because we need to remove the chlorine content in the water to 3 ppm before we flow it to the customer. It's very important because highly chlorine in the water may cause us disease, because like I said before this, chlorine is highly toxic.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I will present to you about the result, the analysis from the result and the application in the industry. Okay, basically we do two experiments. Experiment A about the initial height and the concentration, and experiment B about the volume of the flocculant. Okay, for the experiment A, we can see that we make the height of the sample, cylinder 1 and 2, 90, 3 and 4, 60 cm, and the cylinder 5 is 30 cm. Okay, if we compare the cylinder 1 and cylinder 3, as the height of the liquid suspended increase, we see that the concentration, the settling rate also increase. Okay, for cylinder 1 and 2, we change the concentration. As the concentration decrease, we can see that the rate of the settling also increase. Okay, we go to the graph. Okay, basically in the graph, we can see that time by time, the height decrease is mean that the liquid clear interface increase. Okay, proceed with the part B. Okay, the same goes with the part B. For the height, in part B, we want to see the effect of flocculant. As we increase the amount of flocculant, we can see that the rate of settling also increase. For the same case, for example, if for the previous case, the difference between the cylinder 1 and 2, the rate have the higher difference. But as we make the flocculant for cylinder 2 higher than cylinder 1, the amount of the rate of the cylinder 2 approximately same to the cylinder 1. Okay, this is the graph for the part B. From the experiment, we can make the conclusion based on our objective. We want to recap our objective. We want to study the effect of the flocculant, effect of the height, effect of the concentration, the amount of flocculant. Okay, we go to the conclusion that as the height of the solution increase, the settling rate also faster. Then as the concentration increase, the settling rate is lower. And then if flocculant are added, the settling rate are faster. And the last thing, as we increase the amount of flocculant, the settling rate also increase. But we must take note that the amount of flocculant must be optimum to avoid the increasing in concentration and make the rate slower. Okay, in the industry, based on the result, the industry have to design the process and the reactor based on the analysis. Okay, in the mixer, we know that the sedimentation process is occur, and then we need to add the flocculant. As we see that if we add the flocculant, the sedimentation process will be faster. and then we must add the amount of coolant with the optimal value, because we don't want the value to excess that can cause a lot of cost and also decrease the rate of settling. Okay, the last one, the third one is we have to make the height of the clarifier tank optimum, because we want to get the faster settling rate. Okay, the last one, we must design the shape, the best shape to give the best settling rate. Okay, that's all.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Mr. Khatib, 17719, and I will continue my part with the health, safety, and environment considerations. So, starting with the process safety considerations of this industry. We see that for any industry, basically, there is risk associated with it. For this particular industry, the risk is usually tackled in a proper water safety plan, also known as risk management plan. This basically helps to keep the risk levels at the acceptable levels that keep the workers and the population outside safe. So, the major risk category associated with this particular industry comes from toxic release. This toxic release hazard is mostly because of the chemical used, which is chlorine. As my other partner said, that chlorine has the highest toxicity among the chemicals used in this industry. That's why it has the highest toxic release hazard. So, common release incidents that could release chlorine and intoxicate the population could be caused by tank overpressure, pipeline rupture, pressure relief that is uncontrolled of the chlorine. We have also tank overflow when the chlorine goes out and evaporates into the environment. And we also have storage spillage, etc. Other cases. But those are some of the major health considerations of this industry. We see that impurities in water basically are categorized into suspended, colloidal, and dissolved physical states. So these three physical states must be eliminated in order to eliminate health hazards. So the different treatment stages in this industry remove these impurities respectively. But the one that removes the most actually is primary sedimentation, the one that starts at first. Eventually we have the most threatening hazard actually, doesn't come from these, but actually comes from pathogenic microorganisms or bacteria in the wastewater that's called bifaces. This is actually not removed in sedimentation, but rather in chlorination, which is disinfection by using chlorine. That's why we need it, that's why it's important. Also, we have different organizations throughout the world set different standards for what is a healthy water. Because when you treat the water, you need to follow a standard to show what is a healthy water. So we have different organizations showing different healthy waters. For example, World Health Organization, EPA in the United States, and EEA in Europe. Next, we see the environmental considerations of this industry. So we see in this picture water being discharged into rivers and oceans. Next. Here we see that the water has contaminated the whole lake or the river. And then we see that it causes the ecosystem to die. And then the problem grows further. All of these are actually dead fish because of this discharged wastewater. So, the wastewater discharge threatens the ecosystem. Because of the microorganisms, the pathogens, and all the metals and hazardous chemicals in the wastewater, when it goes untreated into the environment, it might immediately cause the death of some organisms there. Additionally, the wastewater introduces specific nutrients that cause the overgrowth of some species and the decline of other species. For example, algae can grow further because of nutrients in wastewater. This actually negatively alters the ecosystem, which causes the environment generally to change because you change the food chain. And this ultimately affects human beings. In addition, there could be hazard to plants and soil and animals, not only the sea, but plants, soils, and animals because of sludge waste. So now we look at the economic analysis of this industry. Economic aspects are major considerations for any industry, not just this particular industry. Basically, we divide the economic analysis into capital cost and operation and management costs, operation and maintenance costs. These costs vary based on the technology and on the location and the demand and purity needed. So for the capital cost, we see that capital is money paid one time in order to do start the plant. This includes cost of equipment, cost of installation, piping and instrumentation and control, cost of engineering, and cost of contingencies. Additionally, operation and maintenance costs are paid continuously rather than one time. So this is the difference between them. O&M costs are paid continuously, and they include equipment maintenance, chemical costs, taxes, labor, as in the workers there, electricity costs, and even management costs. So, although a large plant requires high capital, but it requires a small operation and maintenance cost. For instance, of average flow, for the average flow, a 1 million gallon per day plant requires only $2 to pay for the average flow, while a 10,000 gallon per day plant requires $13 per average flow. So we see that the smaller the plant, the higher the operation and maintenance costs. Because water and wastewater treatment industries are basically services or actually requirements rather than commercial uses or commercial products, the revenues of this industry isn't really high. But this is based on government regulations actually. For example, profits are made that include water and sanitation bills, which are country-based, as we say. Next. So to conclude what we said today, we have talked about sedimentation and industrial background. We have talked about customers' requirements. We have talked about process description and the flow. We have talked about equipment description and the specification of this equipment. Next, we move to see the experiment that we did about sedimentation. We included health, safety, and environment considerations, and finally, an economic analysis of the process. With that, we finish our presentation. Thank you very much.